So here we are, spawning on Polar Knight, a best of one coming down from these two players, and spawning up in the top left-hand position, it is the blue Zerg player, Reynor. And his opponent, to the south, the yellow Zerg, Minato. Minato and Reynor are going to be doing some pretty cool things, I reckon, here. So far, no super early pulls or anything like that. Minato got an overlord coming through. Reynor does not yet. Is now starting that up, but that's actually quite a bit later. Reynor hasn't actually done anything too crazy. He just got it a lot later. I was waiting to see whether there was an extractor trick or something, but it seems that isn't going to be the case as of yet. Otherwise, not too much really to talk about since they both got those overlords down. The things we're going to be looking for is whether or not it's a hatchery first opening from either or both the players, or whether we'll be getting some kind of spawning pool first build coming down. The spawning pool and hatch first, as long as the spawning pool is an economical pool, so around the kind of 15 mark is most common, generally speaking, you'll end up getting into a very safe situation and economically pretty similar. Obviously the hatchery first works out slightly more economical, but by getting the spawning pool out first, what you leave yourself with is a much earlier inject, so a few more larvae a bit quicker. Being a best of one as well, getting down the spawning pool first, for many, seems like a much safer option, and it seems Minato agrees with that. However, Reynor, he's playing it a bit more risky, going hatch first, feeling pretty confident, it would seem, going in here, especially on Polar Knight that has a relatively short rush distance, just going to be trying to squeeze out every little advantage that he can. Now, for those of you just joining now, this is the first game that I've cast this evening. It's a round of 32 game. There wasn't quite enough people to fully fill up the round of 64 bracket, and therefore a lot of people got a bye. The winner of this will go on to face the winner of Tefl Violet, most likely. I think that game is being played now, so a tough round of 16 game for whoever gets through. Now, for the moment, these two are both going to end up in roughly the same position if we keep following along this path. You can see their drone counts are very similar. Slight lead for Reynor, but it's only fractional. And once, of course, this queen for Minato gets out, he's going to take a little boost in his production due to that lava inject 40 seconds after the queen is finished. So this is all looking nice and secure, nice and steady. Gas being mined currently only for Reynor. Minato opting to go for that gasless play, which will result in him having to get a couple of additional queens out just to be safe. Having speed down is going to be a big boost for Reynor. He can start that up any second now, once he's got enough minerals for it. But the other interesting thing that's worth noting is that he's continuing to mine gas. This suggests that it's not just speed, going for a big speedling play or anything like that, but rather he's going to be looking to get a baneling nest down and potentially either be aggressive with those or be very defensive for most of this game. Minato, on the other hand, without getting any gas, he's going to be just concerned about a lot of speedlings or maybe some banelings coming through. Drones, interestingly, have now been pulled out here by Reynor, so he's not rushing anything down as of yet, but does have still a significant amount of gas banked up that ideally he's going to be wanting to spend fairly soon. Bold move here by Minato, moving on forward. He wants to kill off this overlord. It's only got 27 HP. Reynor coming through with a couple of lings, and those queens deciding actually maybe this isn't the safest move yet. The other advantage of going gasless, of course, is these two additional queens that you have down, which allows you to start trying to pick away at overlords that may stray a little bit too close to your natural base. Reynor is now adding in quite a few more Zerglings. That's actually a lot of Zerglings now. This is a big speed play. He hasn't cut drones super early on, but he has cut drone production fairly substantially now, seeing that his opponent has gone gasless. The key thing here for Minato is to make sure that these queens can wall off. That second evolution chamber going to be critical, buying a lot of time should these speedlings try and come through. Reynor picks off an overlord, supply blocking Minato. That's good. Also though, stopping vision from coming through. Minato though should have got a quick little glimpse that, hang on there, that looks like there is a lot of speedlings. Better throw down that spine. The two queens sitting there may even get another spine down depending on how threatened he feels, but with this wall off position it should be quite challenging for Reynor to bust through. There is a lot of surface area on the roadrunner he could go for. There's no transfuses available yet on the queens, and that's going to allow these lings to come through. Full surround, drones having to be pulled, emergency roaches trying to come through here. The queen's doing a fairly good job of poking away at these, but one only remains now, and that's going to be incredibly difficult to try and make work. A lot of queens going down there. There's only one left. That's obviously going to start hurting the injects. Behind this, Reynor is still pumping a lot of lings, but now is transitioning into additional drone production. He's starting up his lair, adding in these additional 2 gases, probably aiming to go towards Mutalisks. Oh, actually no, not Mutalisks, there's no 4th gas. If you're going to see Mutas, most of the time you're going to be able to see 4 gases. No real reason not to, because going for a heavy Muta play, you want to rush that out. Unfortunately for Reynor, he only managed to kill 3 workers, which actually still keeps him behind with such a heavy commitment to lings that he's so far made. The roaches behind this wall would easily be able to clean out these lings, even if they were going to try and take out that roach warren, so not really something that's viable for Reynor to try and do. What he can achieve though, is just keeping his opponent quite contained. That evolution chamber probably will be cancelled. You don't really want it finishing up. Minato has finished it up. This is just keeping you very safe. It means you've obviously got to kill it, which is a waste of resources, but it just means that you can't get taken out anytime soon. Spire now coming down for Reynor as he has added in that 4th gas, so it should now be Mutalisks. Didn't see that come down initially, but with it now there, 4 gas is definitely going to be Mutas, and the next big thing is Reynor, whether or not he can take this 3rd base. He needs that 5th and 6th gas as soon as he can. So, keeping a close eye on everything coming through. It's a roach heavy play out of Minato, up against a Mutalisk play from Reynor. So very different strategies. The roach heavy play is getting a lot more popular now. It generally transitions into seeing some infestors thrown out, and also spores being used for the defense against that air early on. The infestors can be very good with it. A couple of good fungal growths on a clump of Mutalisks will be devastating to Reynor, but Reynor also needs to look at taking another base. And the reason that is so important is because he just doesn't have the production needed if he's going to invest heavily into those mutas. And without a roach warren, it doesn't seem too likely as of yet that his main plan is to switch into roaches, which is another viable build, starting off with the mutas, then going into the roaches a bit later, which would be plausible with this amount of gas. But Reynor, regardless, should be able to get up 9 mutas instantly, should get the +1 +1 attack upgrade as opposed to the carapace. And for any people who are like, well, in ZvZ mutas always get the carapace upgrade, that was back when it was mainly a muta on muta war in ZvZ, where the carapace would reduce the damage of the bouncing glaives by more than the damage would increase it. But unlike muta on muta fights, you don't need to reduce the bouncing glaives when your opponent doesn't have any Mutalisks. What you do need though is to maximize the damage those mutas can do against ground units, against stray overseers and overlords, and just generally try and be a bit of a pain. So Reynor got his 3rd coming down, but Minato is racking up a sizable number of roaches. 31 of them on the field. He's also sitting with 5 queens and a decent number of spores that should allow him to hold off most of this Mutalisk pressure, especially since there's only 11 of them currently down on the field. That Overlord is going to get taken down. A lot of speedlings coming through here, in addition to just those mutas, but it's the queens alone. They're static and moving anti-air that can be incredibly potent, meaning that Minato isn't reliant on the static defense against these Mutalisks, and instead actually can just start chasing them down. And with the transfuses, this many queens against a relatively small number of mutas are highly effective. Reynor though, his 3rd hatch, it's been finished. That means that he can start mining from that. He can take the 5th and 6th gases relatively soon, which will just allow him to continue pumping out mutas, which he is still doing, allowing him to try and get his muta flock as large as possible. By still committing through and getting down the +1 flyer attack, it's most likely that he is going to be committing to a mass muta strategy. His only concern has got to be, is what if Minato gets down some infestors and lands some great fungal growths? But luckily for Reynor, Minato hasn't started an infestation pit yet, only getting queens, and he's getting actually a fairly sizable number of them, which, as I mentioned previously, with transfuses can be very potent up against these Mutalisks. So spores are still sitting around, but they can't defend everything easily, and that's what's allowing Reynor with some good control here, stacking his mutas to take out a gas. Just hurting the production, hurting the income of Minato, even though he's still got a huge amount of gas banked up. But now the push across the map is starting to look more likely. A couple of lings streaming through. They're not going to be able to do too much against this many roaches. I'm not even sure if they killed a single roach there. The Mutas, though, going in a head-up fight up against the Queens, but with the Transfuses, the Queens are going to come off far, far better here. One Queen now going down, but most of the Mutalisks have been annihilated. So many more Lings on their way, but the Roaches are steaming across the map. Nearly 100 supply advantage for Minato now, splitting his army, some heading up in towards the natural base. Emergency spines, emergency wall-offs trying to come through here, but it really doesn't look like it's going to be enough. The third hatch, it's been taken down, and the Roaches continue to pressure on in. Spines dying to one shot from these Roaches that do have the 2-1 upgrades. And unfortunately for Reynor, Minato crushes through. The GG is called, and Minato takes game number 1 of this best of 1, and therefore advances forward into the next round.